Hello, thank you for joining us in this session. I'm Krishna Venkatasamy, a technology product leader at Manhattan, and I'm joined by Dave Bartoletti from Forrester. In this session, we'll discuss how to get to a cloud-native technology platform, the opportunities it presents, and the obstacles that you may have to overcome as you take advantage of these cloud-native technology platforms. Towards the end of the session, we'll also walk you through some examples of organizations that have successfully moved to a cloud-native technology platform and the benefits they're reaping, right? As we go through this session, if you have any questions, you can enter them in the Q&A panel. With that, let me turn the discussion over to Dave. Dave?
Thanks, Krishna. Thanks to Manhattan for having me, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. So I'm Dave Bartoletti. I'm a Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester, and I lead our Cloud Playbook team. I'm the lead analyst for public cloud platforms, container and cloud native platforms, and core application modernization. We'll be talking a lot about all of those today. I spend most of my time advising Forrester clients on how to accelerate their path to becoming more cloud native, meaning how do they take the most advantage of all the innovative tech available now to help them run and create amazing applications. So today I'd like to share some of our most recent data on cloud native adoption and core application modernization. In particular, first I'll review the state of cloud native in the enterprise, why it's a critical imperative for 2021 and what that means to your business. Then I'll zero in on how companies using cloud native to modernize their most important core business applications. Yes, it's happening. And we'll wrap up with some guidance on how to overcome operational concerns that you might face while you're modernizing those apps. So let's talk about the cloud native imperative. What does it mean? A significant 2021 trend that Forrester's tracking is that cloud native technology will now accelerate software innovation everywhere, not just in the public cloud, not just in the data center, and not just at the edge, but everywhere. Public cloud really began as a data center alternative, right? For the first few years, cheaper than my data center, easy to provision on demand. But now public clouds especially have become innovation engines. The most exciting new services are being pioneered in public clouds. Cloud native technologies that were born in the public cloud herald really a new era of distributed enterprise software, right? Software that's more scalable, more portable, importantly, more secure and more manageable. We'll get into a lot more detail with that. So really the combination of public clouds as an innovation engine producing these cloud native technologies that are now available everywhere means that you really can innovate today from the data center to the public cloud to the edge. Not just in software you build, but also software you consume. So what is cloud native? Really, cloud native is a term that combines three fundamental components. It's really shorthand for modern. And it combines new ways to design, build, and deploy both custom-built and vendor-deployed software. It's about new patterns. Microservices, breaking monolithic applications into collections of microservices that can each be improved independently. Serverless computing, where we can break applications down even into functions, and refactoring monolithic applications to make them more elastic and help your business be more agile. Cloud native also is a set of processes. So the first is how we design applications. The second is how we build them, right? Using highly automated DevOps CI/CD pipelines and workflows and wonderful concepts for infrastructure management, like infrastructure as code. The hallmark here is automation. There's no major success with cloud native without a commitment to automation. And finally, new platforms. And this is what's really enabled by the public cloud platforms and the hugely active open source community around cloud native technologies. Now you have a choice of container platforms, plus VMs that you traditionally deployed applications into, and even emerging functions deployed in a serverless model. And because of the strong influence of open source in this market, these platforms are available in public cloud, on premises, and all the way at the edge. Few companies are completely mature in all three of these domains, right? You can look at it as a three-legged stool, and not every stool is completely stable yet. But aggressive and leading companies are trying to improve their maturity along all three dimensions. And this is why cloud native is so important to track, right? It's not one technology or one location or one approach. I mean, it really is the intersection of new packaging methods for apps, new automated ways to build those apps, and new platforms to deploy and manage them on. Another way to look at this, right, that's the technology view of cloud native, but another way to look at it is the business view of cloud native. Right? It's also a three-legged stool, and it's also a significant trend for 2021. The ultimate goal is business agility, and cloud native helps us with the three essential components of that: velocity, scalability, and portability. Right? The pandemic has brought velocity front and center, right? The need to respond almost immediately to millions of workers sent home, social distancing, the closure of many retail locations. Those in particular sent retailers, just to pick one industry, racing to the public cloud and to cloud-based innovations like AI and machine learning and containers and serverless platforms. Scalability means the instant ability to respond to demand spikes. Right? An interesting quote from the CIO of Nestle this year said, half jokingly, we were saying that from now on, every day is going to be like Black Friday or Cyber Monday. They saw online e-commerce sales grow almost 50% in just the first half of 2020. And that's really the experience we're hearing over and over again from other companies we speak with, right? From toy manufacturers to custom t-shirt makers to memorabilia producers, right? New peak seasons online for their e-commerce teams. And they're learning how to try to handle them without issue because of how they've built their systems to take advantage of cloud-native technologies. And finally, portability, right? Cloud-native gets us much, much closer to the promise of write once, run anywhere than we've ever been before, right? And containerizing an app is a terrific first start to making it portable, right? Older Java or .NET code can be containerized and ported to a more modern platform. Basically anywhere that you can run a container cluster. This approach to sort of decoupling then modernizing is opening up a whole new world for modernization, right? And modernizing even the most complex business apps. And Krishna and I will discuss that further as we go on. Putting all three of these together really gives businesses new levels of agility. And we're putting that to the test right now in 2020. And remember, I think it's important. Agility is more than velocity. Right? Velocity is moving faster in one direction. True agility means changing direction quickly and easily. And never before have we had to change business models and change direction faster than we have in 2020. So we're learning a lot of lessons that are going to set us up for a tremendous time of adaptable response to change next year. So what's the current state of cloud native? We can plot cloud native adoption. Here I show it as container and Kubernetes adoption on a classic technology adoption S-curve. It's clear that we're exiting the rapid expansion phase now and coming into the optimization phase, but we have a few more years before it's widespread. 67% of companies globally, enterprises over 1,000 customers, now run production workloads in one or more public cloud platforms. So we're definitely reaching the optimization phase of public cloud. 30% of enterprise developers around the world actively use containers somewhere in their software development or test lifecycle processes. So it's tracking very quickly, and I believe the S is actually going to be steeper for containers and cloud native technology because public cloud has opened up such a ubiquitous nature of being able to consume cloud native technologies wherever. We expect container adoption and cloud native to hit public cloud adoption levels by 2024 or even earlier, right? So it's really that combination of ubiquitous cloud platforms and open source that's helping us kick container adoption into high gear. And we really expect this transition to cloud native is going to drive the next 5 years of cloud adoption, just like public cloud and drove the adoption for the first 10 years. It's what we're seeing is the term cloud is merging with the term cloud native and both being shorthand for modern, anywhere, fast, and agile. What we're also seeing is that cloud native adoption in the enterprise is following the same adoption waves that we saw in public cloud. Right? The first wave of public cloud adoption was primarily focused on systems of engagement, web, mobile, and omni-channel customer-facing applications. And as soon as we started distributing those apps and building them in public cloud, we started collecting a whole bunch of new data about our customers, their preferences, what products they like the most, what kind of experience they like the best, and that created a flood of new data. So that kicked off the second wave of public cloud adoption around analytics, AI, machine learning, business intelligence, predictive modeling, the systems of insight that let us get new insights from all that data we're collecting. Now that we're starting to collect insights, what do we do with those insights? If we can't turn around and help them improve our core business processes and really rethink our business model, then we've done nothing with the insights. And that's why this wave 3 has kicked off over the past few years to really look at our core sales, our operational, our factory systems, our manufacturing systems, our patient record keeping systems, depending on what industry we're in, that really help us run our business in production and are where our core business processes and our business models live. As you can see, each wave doesn't wait for the other one to finish because they can all happen in parallel at this point. And core application modernization jumped to the top of the enterprise CIO priority list at the end of 2019 and has stayed up there throughout 2020. This is an exciting head for the next year. Krishna, I think you've gone through a major cloud transformation at Manhattan recently. How about you share some of your journey?
Yeah, that was very eloquently put, Dave. And as Dave explained, over the past decade, the adoption of public cloud technologies and the use of containerization technology has become more accessible and economical, right? And that's the S-curve, the adoption that you just walked us through. So at Manhattan, we've been observing these changes over the last decade as well, right? So we've been following the technology trends, understanding what the adoption of these technologies look like, and observing and preparing ourselves for the transformation. So we started down this journey, if you will, of transforming Manhattan as a business through the adoption of technology and adoption of some of these processes that you mentioned. We started the journey in earnest in 2010 with the evolution of the organization, the research and development organization. The first thing that we really started to think about is if we were to take advantage of these technologies, then what does the organization need to look like, from DevOps to site reliability engineering to agility? Like you said, it's not velocity, the agility to be able to build and deliver applications that the market needs, right? And so we started that journey, that transformation of organization in 2010. In 2014, in earnest, we started to look at these technologies, the development patterns, if you will, the microservices, the containerization, and so forth. And we put together our heads around what we needed to do to transform the business, right, and transform the industry that Manhattan supplies to, the supply chain operations that we deliver our solutions to, right? And that included some of the key tenets that we mentioned in the slide on top, right? First, the whole concept of a version needed to be broken, right, in the enterprise application world. And we wanted to be on the forefront of being able to do that, right? The ability to deliver innovation on a cadence. So there is no concept of version. There is a concept of delivering new innovation on a cadence, and we chose to do it, to deliver that on a quarterly basis, right? The concept of extensibility, right? So we're not delivering prepackaged applications. We deliver an enterprise application that has to meet a customer, a organization's operational needs, right? And so the concept of extendability, configurability, and extendability are keys to achieving that, right? So extensions are, building capabilities, innovations on top of what we deliver, but then retaining those innovations for the life of the solution that the customer or the organization plans to use those innovations, extensions, if you will. So we put together an architecture to achieve that. And then to do all this in a manner that our customers, the organizations that adopt this technology, don't have to think about what was required from an IT standpoint, what infrastructure was required, what storage was required, what hard disks were required, disk space was required. So we wanted to do all that behind the scenes for our customers. So hyperscalability and deliverability through our services. And we did that, right? We started with our Manhattan Active Omni solutions that we built on top of the platform and delivered that in 2017. Omni applications include enterprise order management, store inventory, fulfillment, point of sale, and so forth, right? And as you can see, and you, Forrester, have recognized us as being a leaders now over the last few years because of the technology, capabilities, and so forth. And we've achieved all the things we set out to achieve. As you can see, some of the names underneath, the Gucci's, the Under Armours, the Michaels, and they've all taken advantage of this technology and have really reaped the benefits of them, right? And now we're delivering other applications that Manhattan provides, like the warehouse management application, allocation application, other planning and transportation applications in the future will be built on top of the same platform. So it's kind of a unified platform strategy that we've taken here. So that's kind of our journey here, Dave. So I'll turn it back to you so you can explain to our audience how they can achieve this technology modernization and take advantage of these transformational opportunities, if you will, right?
Thank you. That's great, and I really appreciate that. So let's move into the part of the discussion where we talk about how you modernize your core business apps. And first, let's look at where are we in the evolution of modernizing core business critical applications. As I mentioned earlier, most modernization efforts early on with cloud native platforms started with elastic customer-facing web and mobile apps, and especially during COVID recovery, that was really important. Most larger companies are also looking at cloud native for AI and machine learning workloads, right? Those data-driven, multi-tiered, stateful applications that run what is often called the middle office. The emerging frontier, though, that really kicked off in 2020, and I think will accelerate dramatically in 2021, is our most business-critical, complex, legacy, stateful core business apps. The ones that in the past no one wanted to touch because they're too risky, right? Or everyone is too scared to change them, or people said, sure, we'll update this app after I've retired, right? We've been kicking the can down the road for a lot of years with our core business applications. And I think the timing is right now to reevaluate and look at modernizing your core business apps because of the huge impact of the last 15 years of public cloud and the last 5 years of cloud native development. There really does turn out to be three paths, right, to cloud native business value going on at the same time in most enterprises. Most large companies I talk to are doing all three of these things at the same time and achieving slightly different operational and business benefits from doing them, right? First is building new web and mobile apps using cloud native technology. This is the custom software you build yourself, or maybe the custom software you build yourself to extend your core business applications, right? And that's always driven by speed and time to market, right? Especially this year. But there's also a huge movement to migrate, right? Existing applications, not necessarily changing the core code or logic, but migrating existing apps to cloud platforms into the edge. That, as I mentioned earlier, gives you that portability and can throw off some operational efficiency gains as you're not managing all the way down to the bottom of the infrastructure stack. You can shift your focus on operating at the application level and not so much at the infrastructure level. And the most advanced companies that I talk to are using the savings they get, right, from portability, from time to market, the learnings they get, the operational savings, to really focus their energy now on modernizing both the applications they designed from scratch and working with their closest vendor partners to modernize the applications that they consume as well. And I think your architecture has evolved as well, hasn't it, Krishna?
Absolutely, Dave. And we've gone through this similar journey, if you will, right? So that's a very interesting observation here. And I'll quote Martin Fowler to begin with, right? And he very eloquently put this concept, right? So he said almost all the successful microservices stories have started with a monolith that got too big and was broken up, right? So we kind of went through that same, if you will, pain, over the last 3 decades, if you will, right? So at Manhattan, we have very deep supply chain operational knowledge. We've, over the last 3 decades, built out 3 different types of architectural solutions to address these supply chain operational needs. So we have very deep knowledge, right? But the last evolution of this product did its job, but it became what it looks like on the left of this picture, right? It became a kind of a blob of clay, if you will, or a spaghetti, right, at the end of the day, with a lot of deep functionality that was tightly coupled It was built ad hoc, so functionality kind of crept up in all different parts of the application, redundant, functionality. That wasn't truly identifiable, so when you have to fix something, you got to go to 3 different places to fix them and so forth, right? But the functionality was deep and rich, right? And that's the starting point, right? And so as I mentioned earlier, when we started out with this journey in 2014, as we were building out the architectural frameworks or underpinnings, and we leveraged a lot of open source. You touched on open source technology. We leveraged a lot of well-contributed, mature open source technologies to bootstrap the application development. But while we were doing that, we were studying these rich application functionality and creating these modular functional blocks, if you will, right? So they were well-defined. They had good, well-defined interfaces. They were replaceable. In other words, the functionality could be quickly replaced with a similar-looking, similar-functioning third-party tool or an open source if required, right? Very identifiable. You can say this is exactly what this thing does, right? And so we've gone through that journey, right? It's been painful. It's been challenging. But this re-architecture, along with the evolution of the R&D organization that I mentioned earlier, has really helped bootstrap us and kickstart this whole initiative to go into cloud, right? And so that's been our journey, Dave, and we've overcome some pretty significant challenges along the way, both organizational and technology-wise, right? Perhaps you can highlight to our audience, what some of these are and how they could possibly overcome them, right?
Absolutely. So this is what's wonderful about this, that I really enjoy this conversation, is that Manhattan as a core provider has gone through this, right? So not only is the end result a more modular and componentized application that can be modernized more quickly and run in more places, but they can also be a partner for you, right? And you don't have to go this alone. They can help you understand the pitfalls to watch. To get started with core application modernization, 3 hurdles we see everyone has to overcome. First, identify the compelling event that answers why modernize now. That compelling event could be a merger and acquisition. It could be just external forces, external shock, like needing to respond very quickly during pandemic recovery. Identify the first application to start with. Don't try to modernize too many at once, because they get much easier after you've gone down the full path with the first one. And very important, as I mentioned at the beginning, to align your modernization effort, not just around application code or development processes, but around people and their skills, the platforms that you're going to use to deploy on. So people and their skills in continuous integration and continuous delivery and DevOps principles. The platforms they're going to use, container platforms on-prem or in the public cloud, as well as software delivery practices. And once you're ready to get started, what are people actually doing today? This data is from a survey we run every year globally. We ask which of the following types of applications you or your team are currently developing or modernizing using a cloud environment, or have delivered to a cloud environment in the past 12 months. And look at this. We see this is late 2019, early 2020 data. Core operations apps like business intelligence, ERP, supply chain, order management, warehouse management, they're being modernized at the same rate that companies are modernizing their customer-facing web and mobile applications. There's only so much you can improve customer-facing apps before you need to turn back and look at the core operations apps that they rely on. Remember our focus on speed and agility? You can only iterate so fast on improving experience in a mobile or web experience if your business-critical operations systems backing that up can't keep up. So a lot of this modernization effort is about reducing that impedance mismatch between how fast we can iterate in customer-facing and how fast we can iterate in our core applications. How are companies doing this modernizing? This is related data, and this is another one of Forrester's major surveys to IT professionals around the world. And we ask every year how they are migrating and modernizing apps. And if you look at the top 3, they all start with migration, right? Nearly 50% of companies start with a plan to migrate all or part of an app to a public cloud or on-prem private cloud or hosted private cloud environment. We call that the move then improve group. A solid 35% are also building net new applications when they go to cloud. And fewer, but still significant, right? We're at roughly a third, prefer to completely rewrite or partially rewrite their business critical systems before they migrate them. That's more of an improve than move strategy. The key takeaway here is align your app modernization strategy with your cloud strategy, right? Take advantage of the portability of CloudNative to consider a move first and improvement later. In many cases, this helps you get over that hump that the business wants to get to cloud, right? As I said before, you can throw off some operational savings with the move, then throw off incremental business benefits as you steadily improve the app once you've moved it. But you're going to run into challenges. We do, no matter when we try to change major core systems. So I also pulled some data together about what the key operational challenges people need to overcome when they move something to cloud. Every time we move an application anywhere, when we moved it from a physical server to a virtual machine, from a virtual machine to a private cloud in the data center, to an on-prem hosted private, an off-prem hosted private cloud, or to the public cloud, we face some new operational concerns. So with movement comes these concerns. What I did first is I pulled a couple of quotes from a large series of interviews that we ran in late 2019 and actually through the first half of this year with customers who are modernizing core business applications in the cloud. And we asked what attributes are most important for those business critical systems. VP of Tech Operations at a huge financial services company, resiliency is job one. I can't lose resiliency and uptime of critical systems. Same was reiterated by the CIO of a manufacturing company. He said, though, availability is not his major concern, it's performance. I can't have people start waiting any longer to complete tasks, complete business processes or jobs. So regardless of how we modernize, we have to keep performance at steady, continuous, high levels. We asked others what their cloud strategy is for their most business critical systems. This is another important thing. We're looking to consume more of the managed stuff, put so eloquently by the global shipping company enterprise architect. The pull that is drawing them forward is desiring to consume more and more software rather than install, manage, and operate software. So for business critical applications, they're really looking for a provider that is a good custodian of their services and keeps taking on more and more of their operational costs. We hear this over and over again. If we collect all the data from all those interviews, what are the top concerns overall for companies modernizing business critical apps with cloud? First is maintaining security and ensuring compliance. We hear this especially in regulated industries, in retail, healthcare, and especially government. Tracking and optimizing costs. You would think that wouldn't be number two right now, but it is. And that means that this can't get too much more expensive, or I'm going to eat up all of the operational benefits that I've gotten from a move to cloud. Maintaining excellent performance, training. As we mentioned, IT resources on not just the cloud platforms we're going to operate in, but cloud operations, how to optimize them, how to get visibility. And then managing overall operations. What does the new world look like when I have to upgrade, update, patch? How does that change? Can I accelerate some of those processes by working closely with my core systems vendor? And before I let Krishna share some terrific client experiences, I wanted to share two approaches that we think you should explore to overcome these operational concerns. First, since number one is security, take the time to assess your cloud security readiness. Security in the cloud is a shared operational model. And that shared model means that you are on the hook as you are ultimately on the hook, but your cloud provider is going to provide security components up to a certain level in the stack, and you need to understand where that level is. Security in the cloud has to now be continuous, automated, and proactive. We can't wait for something to happen. It's a great time to reassess your security posture and evaluate your maturity in cloud. It's a shared responsibility between you, your cloud provider, and your software vendor. So all three should be included in the conversation. These are the best practices from 30 leading cloud security professionals we spoke to, and you see that continuous, automated, and proactive is definitely on top, but understanding shared responsibilities is just as important. And to maintain performance, right? How can you make sure you maintain reliable, fast performance for your critical apps when you move them to the cloud? By investing in high-speed direct connect services between your data center and the public cloud. All major cloud providers offer direct connect services to help you extend your own corporate network to virtual private networks in the cloud. 62% of companies will use these high-speed direct connect services in 2021, right? You see more than half are implementing them right now in 2020. Nearly a third have already implemented them. This is a very powerful new performance optimization strategy to set up between yourself and the public cloud. These include Google Cloud Interconnect, Azure Express Route, AWS Direct Connect, different names for the same service. And with that, I think, Christian, you have some excellent customer stories you'd like to share. Whoop.
Yep. So that was some great insight and some great data points, Dave, that you shared, and thank you very much for that. Yep. So let me take the next few minutes here to provide some examples of to our audience, that is, of how some of their peers in their specific industries, if you will, have benefited from having moved to this cloud native technology that Manhattan has to offer, right? And I'll share some of the stories that I have here, right? First, here's a specialty arts and craft retailer, right? So they adopted Manhattan's Active Omni application that I mentioned previously, and they decided to implement the online order fulfillment and pickup in store capability in all their stores in North America, right, US and Canada. And as you can see here, they had about 1,100 plus stores. And the key here is they were able to roll out to all these stores in a 4-week window, right? And that is the level of, you talked about agility, right? And it's just not the speed, it's the ability to transform the business operation, being able to, fulfill orders from store, right? Online orders from store and have them picked up in their stores, right? That's a business transformation that they were able to achieve in that 4-week window across 1,100 stores, right? So that's one data point that I'd like to point out here. They also were able to handle spikes in volumes, right? So during Black Friday last year, they did 10 million store inventory adjustments, right? So these volumes are pretty significant, and to achieve that kind of a throughput, they would have to have a lot of IT, brain power behind it, going and establishing the right, servers and network and so forth. They didn't have to think about any of that, right? So they rolled out our solution. Our solution was, user-friendly enough for these store operators, if you will, their associates in the store, to learn and use the technology, and their IT was relieved from having to maintain the system to having to be supporting these store operators, if you will, right? That's a great agility case study here, right? Next one is Kendra Scott is a customer of ours. They provide specialty jewels and so forth to North America, US customers, if you will. Again, they adopted Manhattan Active Omni a few years ago now. But as the pandemic hit earlier this year, they realized that a lot of their inventory was, if you will, stuck in their stores, right? So they couldn't, physically bring customers in, but they had the inventory, which they could leverage to fulfill orders. And if you recall, earlier in the pandemic, distribution centers were shut down, and they couldn't simply go and let people go in and operate there. So they were in a bind while their orders were picking up from customers online, right? So they had to solve for this. And so they chose to turn on the store order fulfillment and the contactless curbside pickup capability that was part of the Manhattan Active Omni solution. So they simply had to enable that. And that's, again, the ability to quickly deliver new functionality, another aspect of agility, right? And they were able to do that and implement the entire capability, the transformation of the business in a 7-day window, right? It basically took 9 total days, 7 business days, they had this solution up and running, and they unlocked all the inventory that was stuck in the store, right? That's a business transformation that they could achieve in a very short window with a technology like this, right? So that's a second use case that I wanted to point to. One other key element here is with the cloud technologies and the prevalence of some of the key abilities that you kind of brought to fore, right? The container technology, and one of them is this infrastructure as a code, right? So basically, you enable additional infrastructure through code as opposed to having to buy and install hardware, right? So that we were able to leverage, right, and make this happen for this customer and all our customers, right? And similarly, there's a number of use cases where, a leading sports equipment company to a clothing retailer to a multi-brand, multi-channel retailer, all of them had, over the last year, through the peak period, through the pandemic, experienced volumes that they would have otherwise would not be able to accommodate, right, without a lot of planning and IT infrastructure to support this kind of volume, right? Everything from the ability to handle 15% increase in order throughput, that's significant for a retailer, right? On top of what they thought they were going to handle, right? And so to be able to achieve that without having to think about it for these retailers is a significant benefit. And as you can see from these numbers that I'm sharing with you amongst our customers, peers of the audience here that have significantly benefited from a cloud native supply chain solution that we've been able to offer, right? I hope that gave our audience some good insight, right? And thank you all for joining Dave and I in this session. If you have further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to Dave or I, right? Our contact information is here.